Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into a truly fascinating, multifaceted topic. It really sits at the intersection of evolving consumer trends, the intricacies of global economics, and the very structure of how we acquire the things we use every day. We've pulled together a rich stack of sources that paint a pretty compelling picture of a world in motion. We're specifically zeroing in on the power sports industry, think motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides, that sort of thing. But honestly, the implications reach far beyond into almost every sector of retail. You might be thinking about that sleek new motorcycle you've been eyeing, or, I don't know, maybe a rugged ATV for weekend adventures, or perhaps even just how your local grocery store manages to stock its shelves day to day. But by the end of this deep dive, you'll discover how these seemingly disparate areas were all intimately connected by a common, almost invisible thread. That thread is the continuously evolving dynamics of retail, the fierce forces of competition, and of course, the power of a consumer choice. Our mission today is to thoroughly unpack the current challenges, the unexpected shifts, and the surprising transformations happening right now, both in the power sports market and, by extension, in the broader retail landscape.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is observing how seemingly niche issues, things happening in one particular industry, can often act as a powerful microcosm. They reflect much broader systemic, economic, and strategic shifts happening on a global scale. It's really quite telling. We'll be meticulously looking at everything from, well, the anticipated wave of dealership closures, which is pretty significant, to the surprising rise of unexpected new players on the manufacturing front. And crucially, what all of this means for how manufacturers connect with consumers, not just today, but in the very near future. This whole discussion naturally raises a really important question. In an era of such rapid and profound change, where does true, sustainable value ultimately lie for the consumer? Is it all about price? Or convenience? Service? Or maybe something else entirely?
Okay, let's peel back the layers then and try to uncover some of these dynamics. We're embarking on a deep dive into, first, those anticipated power sports retail closures that seem to be on the horizon. Then, the somewhat surprising rise of Chinese motorcycle brands in Western markets. Plus, that age-old and frankly intensifying debate between buying from traditional dealerships versus the increasingly popular online big box retailers. And finally, the strategic, sometimes really radical shifts companies are making just to stay fiercely competitive. You'll hear about everything from the impact of trade tariffs on pricing, which is huge, to unexpected celebrity endorsements shaping brand perceptions, and even that pervasive Walmart effect on local communities. So, get ready. Prepare yourself for some truly insightful aha moments that might just change how you view your next big purchase. 1. The shifting sands of the power sports industry, navigating turbulence in 2025. So let's kick things off with a rather stark, maybe even sobering prediction for the power sports industry. It sounds like it's bracing for a pretty significant shakeup in 2025. We're talking about potentially hundreds of dealerships closing their doors. That's a substantial number. What's really driving this anticipated wave of closures, and what does it truly signal for the overall health, I guess, the future direction of the industry as a whole?
Yeah, that number is attention-grabbing, isn't it? To fully grasp the magnitude and, the underlying causes of this impending shakeup, we really need to carefully dissect several interconnected factors. First, we'll examine the immediate economic pressures. These are weighing heavily on dealers right now, particularly that double whammy of elevated new vehicle inventory just sitting on lots and a noticeable weakening in consumer demand. That's a tough spot. Then we'll connect this immediate pressure to the broader ongoing trend towards market consolidation. This is where larger, more diversified players are demonstrably outperforming and, frankly, absorbing the smaller ones. It's been happening for a while. And finally, we'll consider the somewhat paradoxical, unique window of opportunity that the recent past, specifically the COVID-19 pandemic, created for some dealers. It actually allowed some to strategically exit the market on pretty favorable terms, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Okay, so the reports mention around 400 powersport dealerships are anticipated to close in 2025. That number really jumps out. It suggests a tangible strain on the market, almost like a, I don't know, slow motion earthquake happening.
Indeed, yeah, that figure is quite significant. And these anticipated closures, they're largely driven by a challenging confluence of factors. Like I said, a substantial buildup of new vehicle inventory that just isn't moving as quickly as manufacturers or dealers would like. Combine that with a noticeable weakening in overall consumer demand. Think of it as a classic supply-demand imbalance, but one that's putting immense financial pressure on dealerships, especially those with less financial resilience, maybe smaller operations, or those that are less diversified across brands. We've actually already seen the early indicators of this trend starting. Harley-Davidson, or HOG as it's traded for instance, experienced several dealership closures back in 2024. So this isn't entirely a new phenomenon, right? It's more like an acceleration of existing pressures that are now just reaching a critical point. Mark Sheffield, who's a respected board advisor for the National Powersports Dealer Association, he explicitly articulated this rather grim outlook. He stated that 2025 is going to be a tough year for the powersports industry, and we're going to see a lot of the weaker players go away. So this isn't just speculation. It's really a reflection of fundamental market forces at play right now.
Right. So if the weaker players are indeed going away, what specifically allows these larger dealerships to not just survive, but actually thrive in a way that smaller operations can't seem to? It really does sound like an environment just ripe for consolidation, with the bigger dealers effectively swallowing up the smaller ones.
Precisely. And it's not just about raw size, though that helps. It's more about the strategic advantages that scale actually confers. For years now, larger dealerships have demonstrably outperformed smaller ones, often by a really wide margin in terms of profitability and resilience. They benefit significantly from being able to carry multiple brands under one roof. Now, this isn't merely about having, more bikes on the floor. It allows them to diversify their offerings across different segments: cruisers, sport bikes, ATVs, snowmobiles, you name it. And crucially, stock the most popular and most profitable vehicles from various manufacturers. They can pick and choose. This diversification also acts as a really important buffer against external shocks. Imagine a major product recall from a single manufacturer, or, widespread production delays on a particular popular model. For a single brand dealership, something like that could be absolutely catastrophic. It could potentially put them out of business entirely. But a multi-brand dealership, they can absorb those kinds of blows much more effectively because the impact is diluted across diverse product lines and supplier relationships.
That truly makes sense. Yeah, one major recall or some big supply chain hiccup could be utterly devastating if your entire business hinges on just one type of bike or one manufacturer. That's huge risk.
Exactly right. And furthermore, as a dealership grows in size and revenue, it gains the capacity to create more specialized positions within its organizational structure. So instead of maybe one individual juggling multiple, often disparate roles, maybe trying to handle sales, marketing, and inventory all at once, a larger dealership can employ specialists. You can have someone focused solely on digital marketing, right? Someone dedicated to inventory management, or an expert in a specific service area, like performance tuning. This specialization leads to far greater productivity, efficiency, and frankly, depth of expertise. For instance, an employee who's dedicated to navigating the ever-evolving complexities of online advertising and customer engagement can generate far better results than someone splitting their time three ways. And this level of resource allocation for specialized functions, especially in areas like sophisticated digital marketing, it's incredibly difficult for smaller operations to replicate. They just don't have the scale. And, from the perspective of an OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, that's the company actually making the vehicles, having multiple brands under one roof gives these larger dealers more collective leverage. It provides them with a stronger negotiating position, maybe against a single manufacturer that might, as one source colorfully puts it, get too big for their britches, maybe dictating unfavorable terms. It's really about balancing power dynamics within the entire distribution network, ensuring no single entity holds undue influence.
Okay, that makes sense from a business strategy perspective. But what about the people actually working at these dealerships? Does increased size offer more to employees in terms of, say, growth or having a real career path?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a crucial point for attracting and keeping good talent. Larger stores inherently offer more opportunities for motivated employees to grow, both in terms of responsibilities and, importantly, compensation. There's a huge difference between a job and a career, as one source wisely notes. And larger dealerships are just far better equipped to foster that long-term career path. They can offer structured training programs, clear advancement opportunities, maybe more robust benefits packages. This structured growth potential is a significant factor in attracting and retaining top talent, which in turn directly contributes to overall service quality, customer satisfaction, and the dealership's long-term reputation. It really creates a kind of virtuous cycle where better talent leads to better service, which further strengthens the larger dealership's market position.
It seems the COVID-19 pandemic created a really strange paradox for some dealers, didn't it? I mean, it was a globally tumultuous time, obviously. But for many in power sports, it turned out to be a record-breaking year for sales. That seems quite counterintuitive.
It was indeed an odd year, absolutely. It created what many in the industry described as a once-in-a-lifetime situation. It was completely unexpected. See, many dealers, prior to the pandemic, had actually been struggling. They had considerable amounts of old, often obsolete unit inventory, sometimes stuff that was years old, just sitting there. And they'd accumulated significant debt from carrying that unsold stock. Floor plan costs can be huge. However, that unexpected, explosive surge in demand for outdoor recreational activities during the pandemic, driven by lockdowns, people wanting socially distanced hobbies, maybe having extra stimulus cash, it allowed them to sell off almost all of that old inventory. And often, this happened at full price, or sometimes even for a handsome profit. It effectively cleared out warehouses and showrooms that had previously been cluttered with aging stock. This unforeseen windfall enabled many to pay off existing debt, clean up their balance sheet completely, and build substantial cash reserves. As a result, many smaller dealers who might otherwise have faced really significant struggles suddenly found themselves in this unique, financially strong position. They had remarkably clean warehouses, robust balance sheets, making it, for many of them, literally the best time to sell their dealership.
Right. So they essentially cleaned house, got financially strong, and now some are making the strategic choice to exit while the going is good, so to speak. But what about those who decided to remain, or perhaps couldn't find a suitable buyer at the right price? What specific challenges are they facing now in 2025 after that temporary boom has faded?
Yet, for those who chose not to sell, or maybe couldn't find the right buyer, the situation in 2025 remains quite challenging. It's a different landscape now. It's tough, for one thing, to obtain new inventory consistently. Many essential parts and accessories are still on backorder due to those lingering global supply chain issues. This creates frustration for both the dealers trying to stock their floors and for customers eager for new models or needing repairs. Moreover, rising prices across the industry driven by inflation, material costs, logistical expenses, they're creating more demanding and price-sensitive customers. People expect more for their investment now, and they're maybe less forgiving of shortcomings or delays. And compounding this, many OEMs, the manufacturers, are rolling out expensive new showroom configurations and facility upgrades. These demand significant capital investment from dealers. But crucially, these mandated upgrades don't necessarily guarantee increased sales or profitability. It's a big gamble. So without a clear and sustainable path to generate the kind of, let's say, outsized profits seen during that 2020-2021 boom, the decision some owners made back then to get out right now might indeed have been the best decision that many owners have made. This dynamic strongly suggests a continued thinning of the herd, where only the most adaptable, the most well-resourced, and the most strategically managed dealerships will likely survive and ultimately thrive in the leaner market ahead. What really emerges from this whole shakeout isn't just simple consolidation. It's more fundamental. It's about who truly holds the reins in powersports retail going forward. It might be less about sheer size and maybe more about those players who can master diversified offering, hyper-efficient operations, and really build those unshakable customer relationships in what's becoming a truly volatile market.
When you consider these powerful market forces, the consolidation, the impact of past economic swings, the pressure on smaller players, what really stands out to you, how might these profound changes ultimately benefit or perhaps limit the choices available to riders like you in the long run? And maybe how might that influence your future buying decisions, too? The rise of Chinese motorcycles.
Shaking up the Western market.
Okay, moving from that overall industry landscape, let's zoom in a bit on a major disruptor that's been making serious waves: Chinese motorcycle manufacturers. For a long, long time, Western markets were largely dominated by those established Japanese, European, and American brands. It was almost a predictable hierarchy, right? But now, Chinese bikes are gaining significant, really undeniable traction. How did they manage to achieve this foothold so quickly? And what makes them such an attractive and, let's be honest, at times rather controversial option for riders seeking new wheels today?
Yeah, this phenomenon isn't accidental at all, nor is it just a flash in the pan. It's really a calculated strategic advancement. To understand it fully, we'll need to explore the specific cost-saving strategies that these Chinese manufacturers rigorously employ to achieve their, frankly, aggressive pricing. Then we'll identify the unique market gaps they've shrewdly spotted and capitalize on areas where established Western brands simply weren't competing effectively or at all. Crucially, we'll also delve into the vital role of the strategic partnerships they've been forging with established Western companies. That lends them credibility and, importantly, technological know-how. And finally, yes, we'll have to touch on the complex economic and political factors introduced by trade tariffs and how those might ultimately reshape this competitive landscape, potentially altering the very foundation of their price advantage.
Right. China is universally known as a manufacturing powerhouse, churning out goods for the entire world. We all know that. But its growing dominance in the motorcycle industry, specifically in Western markets, particularly for brands like CF Moto, SSR Motorsports, Kayo, and Benelli, which, as you mentioned, is actually under the Chinese Kamjiang group. That's described as a newer phenomenon. What specific segments are they targeting most effectively, and why those particular areas?
You're right. It is a relatively recent, yet incredibly powerful shift in the market dynamics. While yes, the large capacity premium bikes in the US market are still largely and culturally associated with those Japanese, European, and American brands that boast long legacies and strong reputations. Chinese brands are making significant, undeniable inroads, especially in the budget and entry-level segments. That's where they're hitting hardest. They've strategically leveraged affordability as their undeniable advantage. This has made them exceptionally attractive options for new riders, people just getting into motorcycling, maybe intimidated by high prices, or for experienced riders who are just budget conscious and might otherwise be entirely priced out of the market by the cost of traditional brands. Now, this isn't necessarily about directly competing head-to-head on, say, premium features or cutting-edge technology or raw horsepower with the established giants. Not yet, anyway. Instead, their sharp focus is squarely on providing an accessible entry point.
Effectively democratizing motorcycling, making it a possibility for a much wider demographic by making cost-effectiveness the absolute paramount consideration.
Okay, so it goes beyond just lower labor costs, which is the typical assumption. How exactly do they manage to sell bikes at prices that truly undercut Western brands so dramatically? What are the specific tactics they're employing?
It involves a multi-pronged, highly efficient approach that extends far beyond just labor costs, as you correctly noted. That's only part of the equation. Firstly, they are masters at utilizing what are called economical materials and components. This means they consciously choose cost-effective materials that still meet the minimum standards for performance and safety, but may not necessarily match the long-term durability or the premium tactile feel or the advanced metallurgical properties of materials used by established higher-end brands. For instance, where a high-end European or Japanese model might feature sophisticated, lightweight aluminum alloys for enhanced performance and strength, a Chinese brand might opt for less expensive, perhaps heavier steels, or more basic mass-produced plastics for fairings and other components. This seemingly small difference in material choice is actually a crucial and deliberate cost-saving measure that allows them to achieve those aggressively low price points.
And what about the technology side of things? Are they, cutting corners there to save costs as well?
Secondly, and just as importantly, they often incorporate minimalist electronics and limited safety features into their designs, especially on the lower-end models. This is a significant factor in dramatically reducing manufacturing costs. Advanced features that are becoming common on premium Western models, things like sophisticated anti-lock braking systems, ABS, that prevent wheel lockup under hard braking, or traction control systems that manage wheel spin, or other high-tech rider aids like multiple riding modes, integrated infotainment systems, advanced suspension electronics. Those are either less common or entirely absent, particularly in their entry-level models. Now, while this approach makes the bike significantly more affordable and appealing to a budget-conscious buyer, it can naturally impact the overall riding experience, potentially limit performance in certain challenging conditions, and critically, compromise safety for some riders who might benefit from the added layer of these advanced systems. This is a deliberate trade-off they make to keep prices low and make the bikes widely accessible.
Okay, so beyond just being cheaper, which niches exactly are these Chinese brands successfully finding their footing in? Are there specific gaps in the market that the Western brands just aren't adequately serving at all?
Absolutely. They've demonstrated remarkable agility in identifying several key gaps in the market and strategically positioning themselves to fill them with quite compelling offerings. Their primary success, as we touched on, comes from offering affordability for new and budget-conscious riders. It's a fundamental economic reality, right? High-quality, often premium-priced motorcycles from established brands like Honda, BMW, Harley-Davidson, they're often simply too expensive for someone just starting out. Or for individuals with limited discretionary income, Chinese brands provide that crucial entry-level option, effectively democratizing motorcycling, allowing a much wider segment of the population to experience the joy of riding without a prohibitive major financial investment.
So it's very much about accessibility then, lowering that financial barrier to entry. What about engine size? Are they focusing on specific segments there too?
Yes, they've also found a significant and frankly underserved niche by focusing on small to mid-size engine capacities. These bikes, typically ranging under 500cc, maybe even 300cc, are inherently more fuel-efficient, lighter, and generally more manageable, especially for new riders. They are ideal for urban commuting, short recreational trips, or just for learners where high horsepower isn't the primary priority. Models like the Benelli TNT 300 and the CF Moto 300 NK are prime examples of this urban-focused, practical strategy. They offer nimble performance and low running costs, which are key selling points for a significant portion of the global market. There's also a rapidly rising interest in off-road and recreational riding among consumers. And Chinese brands like SSR Motorsports and Kayo have adeptly met this demand for affordable off-road options. They're attracting younger riders and beginners who want to try dirt biking or trail riding without the substantial financial commitment of a high-end machine from a traditional brand like KTM or Husqvarna.
And I understand they're even making significant moves into the very popular adventure segment these days, aren't they? That seems quite ambitious, going up against the likes of BMW GS or KTM Adventure.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Catering to the adventure segment is another rapidly growing area where they are making noticeable inroads. It's ambitious, but they're doing it. Models like the CSC RX4 Adventure, for example, offer an exceptionally affordable entry point into adventure touring. Now, okay, they aren't as refined, maybe not as powerful or as feature-rich as the premium adventure bikes from BMW or KTM that cost 2 or 3 times as much. But this strategic move highlights their responsiveness to evolving consumer interests. And it shows their impressive ability to quickly develop and bring to market products for emerging market segments that established brands might be slower to address, especially these lower, more accessible price points. It really shows their adaptive manufacturing and market sensing capabilities are quite strong.
Right. Now, we simply can't talk about Chinese imports without addressing the elephant in the economic room, trade tariffs. How do these political and economic tensions, particularly the U.S.-China tariffs we hear so much about, affect the affordability advantage we've been discussing? Could that disappear?
Yeah, this raises an important and frankly complex question about the future viability of their core pricing strategy. How U.S.-China tariffs impact motorcycle prices. President-elect Donald Trump's first administration, you'll recall, notably introduced tariffs on many Chinese imports across various industries. And his coming administration has openly discussed implementing additional tariffs, potentially as high as 60%, on Chinese goods. That's a huge number. Now, while these tariffs are primarily designed, at least ostensibly, to protect domestic production, encourage reshoring of manufacturing, and address perceived trade imbalances, they can directly and significantly increase the cost for Chinese brands like CF Moto and Benelli to import their products into the U.S. market. It's a direct hit to their cost structure. This imposition of tariffs could potentially erode their crucial low-price advantage, making them less competitive against Western counterparts who might not face similar import duties. Both manufacturers and consumers must stay extremely informed about these evolving trade policies, because these decisions could shape the future of the motorcycle market in really fundamental ways. It could push Chinese brands to innovate further to offset the additional costs, perhaps by establishing assembly plants in other countries like Mexico or Southeast Asia, or maybe by increasing their internal efficiency even more aggressively. But regardless, this adds a substantial layer of economic uncertainty to their market strategy, and it could directly impact consumer prices down the line. So in sum, these Chinese motorcycle manufacturers have strategically entered Western markets by relentlessly prioritizing affordability. They do this through the astute use of cost-effective materials and streamlined features. Simultaneously, they've demonstrated a really keen eye for identifying and filling crucial market gaps, particularly at the entry level and in segments underserved by established players. Their strategic partnerships with Western brands further enhance their credibility and accelerate their technological capabilities. Though, as we said, the persistent specter of escalating tariffs constantly looms over their pricing strategy, introducing a significant and unpredictable variable into their competitive equation.
Okay, so when you put all of this together, what does this aggressive rise of Chinese manufacturers truly mean for you as a consumer? Does that undeniable allure of a lower price tag outweigh potential long-term concerns about features, build quality, or even resale value? Especially when the unpredictable winds of tariffs might shift that whole equation entirely? How do you weigh that balance personally? 3. Quality, performance, and perceptions. Stacking up Chinese versus Western bikes. All right, we've thoroughly discussed how Chinese bikes manage to keep those prices remarkably low and how they cleverly fill specific market gaps. But now, let's address what is, for many riders, the absolute elephant in the room: genuine quality and real-world performance. How do Chinese motorcycles truly measure up against their long-established, often revered Western counterparts when you actually get them out on the road? And what are the actual tangible trade-offs for consumers who choose to buy one, beyond just the sticker price?
Right. This is where the rubber really meets the road, so to speak. This is the crucial comparison. We'll directly compare the inherent pros and cons of Chinese bikes, drawing on specific examples and real-world user experiences to illustrate these points clearly. Then, We'll contrast this with the enduring strengths and the distinct value propositions of key Western brands, the ones that have dominated the market for decades. And finally, we'll consider the broader, multifaceted ripple effects, both positive and negative, that the entry and expansion of Chinese brands are having on the entire global motorcycle industry, especially regarding those long-held perceptions of quality, durability, and maybe even innovation.
Okay, let's start by just laying out the direct advantages and disadvantages of choosing a Chinese motorcycle. For a buyer, what are the clear pros that make them an appealing choice, particularly, say, for a budget-conscious rider or someone new to bikes?
Well, the most significant and undeniable pro is right there in the price. Affordability. It's huge. Chinese motorcycles offer an exceptionally cost-effective entry point into motorcycling. This is absolutely crucial for new riders who might be hesitant about a large initial investment, or really, for anyone operating under strict budget constraints. This directly ties into accessibility. Because they're cheaper, these brands can rapidly offer diverse options. You can find everything from dirt bikes for off-road enthusiasts to practical commuters, adventure models, and even sport bike lookalikes, all at lower price points. This broad spectrum caters to a wide range of riding interests that might otherwise be financially completely out of reach. We also see partnerships as a huge and growing benefit for them. Collaborations with established Western brands like CF Moto's strategic work with KTM on engine technology, design, even manufacturing, are actively and visibly improving the overall quality. They're improving performance and expanding the technological capabilities of Chinese manufactured bikes. These partnerships also lend immense credibility and signal a real commitment to advancing their engineering standards.
Okay, but of course, there are always two sides to the coin, right? Especially when we're discussing significantly lower price points. Where do Chinese motorcycles typically fall short, and what are the definite downsides a potential buyer absolutely needs to consider?
Yes, the cons are equally important to consider for a truly balanced perspective, and they often highlight the trade-offs made to achieve that affordability. Many Chinese bikes, especially at the lower end of the price spectrum, have limited advanced features. That's a big one. This means they often lack the sophisticated safety features and advanced electronics that are becoming increasingly common, even standard, on premium Western models. For example, the absence of multi-mode anti-lock braking systems, ABS, or advanced traction control, or those sophisticated rider aids that enhance safety and performance that can be a significant difference, especially for less experienced riders. And while it's consistently improving, build quality can still vary significantly, particularly with the less established brands or the ultra-budget models. This can directly impact long-term durability and the overall tactile feel of the machine. Minor things like the quality of the paint finish or the robustness of small components like switches or levers can be noticeable, and perhaps most notably for long-term ownership cost. Chinese motorcycles generally have a lower resale value compared to their established Western or Japanese counterparts. This depreciation can significantly affect the total cost of ownership over time. A substantial portion of the initial savings might be lost when the time comes to sell or trade in the bike. This makes the cheap-to-buy benefit maybe less pronounced in the long run when you factor everything in.
We even have some real-world anecdotes that vividly highlight this balancing act between initial costs and long-term quality, don't we? You mentioned Royal Enfield as an affordable alternative. Though not Chinese, it serves as a good comparison point. What exactly has been the experience there for some owners?
Yeah, the source provides a particularly telling anecdote from a Royal Enfield Himalayan owner. And while, yes, it's not a Chinese bike, it offers a very clear illustration of the challenges and trade-offs often associated with budget-friendly motorcycles, regardless of their origin. At just 9,000 miles, which is relatively low mileage for a modern motorcycle, this owner experienced a pretty disheartening series of issues. Significant clutch wear, a visibly cracked exhaust system, a failed rear brake light, and a dying steering head bearing. That's quite a list. He openly admitted that while he sort of like working on all of this, implying he has a certain mechanical inclination and maybe enjoys tinkering, the cumulative service costs, even if doing the work himself by just purchasing the parts, added up quickly and substantially. He even mused, somewhat regretfully, that in retrospect, he should have got a KLR, referring to the Kawasaki KLR 650, which, as you know, is a motorcycle legendary for its rugged simplicity and almost bulletproof reliability. This internal reflection powerfully suggests that the ongoing maintenance and durability issues can, in fact, quickly negate any initial savings made on the purchase price. This anecdote underscores a critical point. The purchase price is really a small part of the cost for motorcycles. The true total cost of ownership encompassing repairs, maintenance, depreciation, insurance is paramount. And the observation that the paint on this Royal Enfield chipped easily further speaks to the broader build quality concerns one might encounter with budget options, regardless of where they're made.
Okay, so against this backdrop of emerging Chinese brands and their specific value proposition, who are the established players that these Chinese manufacturers are ultimately stacking up against? And what precisely defines their enduring appeal and their premium market position? Why do people still pay more for them?
Right. Western manufacturers continue to robustly dominate in the mid to large capacity segments. And that position, they've built it over decades, sometimes even centuries, of cultivating reputations for high-quality craftsmanship, advanced technology, and enduring performance. They've heavily invested in legacy and trust. So first you have Harley-Davidson, iconic American brand, right? It's far more than just a motorcycle. It's synonymous with a particular lifestyle, an entire culture, a distinct sound. They are globally renowned for their powerful cruisers and touring models, offering a premium, immersive experience steeped in classic design and a uniquely strong brand identity that really transcends mere transportation. Next up, BMW Motorrad from Germany. They exemplify precision engineering and that unparalleled Teutonic efficiency. They offer high-performance adventure bikes like the legendary GS series, luxurious touring machines, and agile sport bikes. BMW is renowned for cutting-edge technology, advanced ABS, sophisticated electronic suspension, integrated connectivity, appealing deeply to riders who prioritize versatility, refined engineering, and sophisticated features.
Then we have Triumph Motorcycles from the UK, a brand steeped in rich heritage, classic styling, but with a modern focus on performance. Their diverse range extends from retro-inspired roadsters like the Bonneville and Thruxton to powerful adventure bikes like the Tiger series. They appeal to riders who deeply appreciate both historical significance and exhilarating modern performance, a real blend. Then there's Ducati, the passionate Italian marquee, famously synonymous with high-performance sport and street motorcycles. Models like the Panigale are characterized by their aggressive, almost artful styling, incredibly powerful engines, and an intense, unwavering focus on speed and style. They're world-renowned for innovation, track prowess, and that undeniable emotional appeal. And finally, KTM from Austria. They stand as a formidable leader in the off-road and adventure motorcycling world. Their bikes, like the 790 Adventure or their legendary dirt bikes, are globally recognized for rugged design, exceptional off-road capabilities, and uncompromising high performance. They're often the go-to choice for riders seeking durable, high-performance machines for serious dirt riding and extensive adventure travel.
These brands, while generally positioned at a significantly higher price point, are universally seen as offering superior durability, continuous technological advancements, and a powerful brand legacy. And that's often what riders seeking a premium experience and long-lasting quality prioritize above all else. They're willing to pay for that assurance.
Okay, beyond the individual consumer and the brand comparisons, how are these Chinese brands actually impacting the motorcycle industry as a whole, maybe in a truly positive and transformative way? Are there broader benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. Their entry has undeniably brought several positive and transformative shifts to the global motorcycle industry. Firstly, increased accessibility and affordability is paramount. That's a huge positive impact. Chinese brands like CF Moto, SSR Motorsports, Kaio have made it significantly easier for new riders to enter the world of motorcycling. With starting prices often substantially lower than established brands, they offer a much more affordable entry point. This makes motorcycles accessible to a much wider demographic that previously just couldn't afford them. This increased accessibility can, in turn, grow the overall rider community, right? Which potentially increases long-term demand for related products, services, events across the entire ecosystem. More riders benefits everyone. Secondly, they offer diverse options for consumers. The rise of Chinese brands injects a really healthy dose of variety into the market. It gives consumers more genuine choices across different price ranges, styles, performance levels. Their budget-friendly options complement and coexist with higher-end bikes from established brands. This allows riders to choose based on their specific needs, their budget constraints, their experience level, and they particularly excel at filling those gaps in the market. Small displacement models, practical commuter bikes, entry-level adventure options that Western and Japanese companies don't always address adequately, especially at lower price points. And, as we've noted earlier, strengthened global partnerships are a huge benefit for the industry overall. Collaborations like CF Motos with KTM allow Chinese brands to access advanced technology, sophisticated engineering expertise, valuable quality control processes. While on the flip side, Western brands benefit from reduced manufacturing costs and expanded distribution channels into new markets, particularly China itself.
This really fosters a more interconnected, globally integrated, and ultimately more competitive motorcycle industry.
Okay, but with every major shift or new market entry, there are always potential downsides or concerns, right? What are the significant concerns or potential negative impacts for the broader motorcycle industry as these Chinese brands gain more and more traction?
You're absolutely right. There are significant concerns over quality and durability that the industry as a whole must contend with. While quality is undeniably improving across the board, we have to acknowledge that the historical reputation of some less established Chinese models for being less durable or maybe less reliable can, unfortunately, affect the perception of motorcycling overall, especially for newcomers. A poor initial experience with a low-quality or unreliable bike might actively discourage new riders from continuing in the community, which could negatively impact long-term industry growth and rider retention rates. First impressions matter. This influx also creates significant pressure on established brands like Harley-Davidson, Honda, BMW. These legacy companies, which have historically relied on premium pricing, strong brand loyalty, and superior quality, may feel compelled to lower their prices, or maybe introduce budget models specifically to compete with the new entrants. This could potentially impact their profitability or even dilute their carefully cultivated brand perception among loyal customers who expect a certain level of exclusivity and perceived quality. It's a tough balancing act for them. The impact on resale value is also significant across the board. Due to their lower initial costs, Chinese motorcycles generally experience lower resale values compared to established brands. We know that. But this can create a ripple effect in the entire used bike market, potentially affecting resale values across all brands. And it might potentially discourage long-term ownership if riders anticipate significant depreciation on their investment, no matter what brand they buy.
So it really sounds like it's a constant, delicate balancing act between price and perceived quality for the entire industry then.
Exactly. The industry must navigate this complex terrain and consciously balance affordability with quality. They need to ensure that accessible models still maintain acceptable standards for safety, performance, and overall rider satisfaction. This is absolutely crucial for sustained growth and long-term rider retention. You can't afford to lose riders early on. Brands like Benelli and CF Moto, they are actively working to improve quality, often through these strategic partnerships and significant investments in R&D. And this will likely raise overall quality standards across the industry over time, which ultimately benefits all consumers by offering better value at competitive prices. Competition drives improvement. This dynamic marks a definitive new era of competition and choice, fundamentally shaping the global motorcycle market into a more diverse, challenging, and ultimately, I think, more exciting landscape for riders. So what we really observe here is this dynamic tug-of-war, right? Chinese motorcycles offer an undeniable, highly accessible entry point for countless new riders, forcing established brands to adapt their strategies.
While, yes, historical quality concerns persist, the industry is unequivocally evolving. Strategic partnerships and intense competitive pressures are driving continuous improvements across the board, ultimately presenting consumers with a much wider, more varied array of choices than ever before.
When you consider all these pros and cons we've laid out, how do you personally weigh the immediate, tangible cost savings of an affordable bike against the potential, perhaps hidden long-term implications? Things like maintenance, ultimate resale value, and your overall riding experience. What's your personal sweet spot in that complex equation? Where do you land? 4. The e-commerce revolution. Buying motorcycles from Walmart.
Okay, now, let's talk about a truly surprising, almost mind-bending development that fundamentally challenges all our traditional retail models. The idea of buying a motorcycle from Walmart. Yes, you heard that right, walmart.com. This sounds less like a trip to your local dealership, with the showroom and the salespeople, and more like, well, a very large, somewhat unconventional online shopping spree. So what exactly is the real-world experience of buying what one source jokingly called a crotch rocket directly from Walmart? And how does that whole process stack up against the conventional, long-established dealership experience we're all familiar with?
Right, this is where the retail landscape gets truly wild, maybe even a bit absurd. We'll walk through the entire journey described in one source, from that initial online purchase click to the rather unconventional, maybe even comical, in-parking lot assembly process, including all the unexpected challenges and quirky, often humorous details that emerged along the way. We'll then starkly contrast this pioneering direct-to-consumer model with the traditional dealership experience, meticulously highlighting the unique value propositions of each model, covering everything from the upfront price to that critical post-sales support.
The very idea of Walmart waging war on motorcycle dealerships by selling bikes online is just It's wild. You can't just walk into a super center and grab one off the shelf, can you? I assume not. It's Walmart.com, and then it literally shows up at your door in a big crate. What's that process truly like from a consumer's perspective? What did they find?
It's certainly unconventional, yeah, and a radical departure from traditional retail norms for vehicles. The YouTube video we pulled from recounts a truly unique experiment, purchasing what they deliberately called the cheapest crotch rocket, available from Walmart.com, just finding the absolute bottom price point. The initial, rather ambitious plan was actually to assemble this motorcycle right there in the Walmart parking lot, using only tools and supplies that could be sourced directly from Walmart itself, kind of a purist approach. The host humorously called this the most Tennessee thing you can do, or even playfully suggested a Georgia thing, vividly emphasizing the extreme DIY, somewhat informal, and distinctly American nature of the entire endeavor. The sheer excitement surrounding the unboxing was vividly likened to Christmas Day, except for 100 degrees and in a Walmart parking lot, painting a picture of a very unusual and memorable setting. Now, before even attempting the assembly, they tried something truly unique, attempting to return the crated bike to gauge Walmart's return policy for such a large, unusual item. They were met with what they called a roadblock, quite literally. While Walmart.com typically accepts returns for most things, the sheer size and bulk of a crated motorcycle made it an unprecedented request. It highlighted the significant logistical challenges inherent in this kind of purchase. Ultimately, without the correct barcode readily available, the return attempt failed, sending them back to the parking lot for Plan A, the assembly.
Wow, trying to return it first. That's bold. Okay, so the unboxing itself, once they got past that return attempt, were there any immediate surprises or quirks that jumped out at them right away?
Yeah, the unboxing was definitely not the sleek, dramatic reveal that the host had maybe hoped for, nor what you'd expect from a traditional vehicle purchase right now. The bike arrived covered in a lot of stuff, including protective wrapping, cardboard, which completely obscured the initial view. A bit anticlimactic. A notable and immediate disappointment was the color. Despite meticulously requesting a specific color and even providing a backup option during the online ordering process, they received a red bike. This frustrating detail highlighted a curious and somewhat problematic policy where, according to the host, you essentially verbally agree for them to give you whatever color they decide no matter what you say. Not ideal. There were also immediate quirks that unmistakably hinted at its overseas origin. For instance, a burn warning label was rather crudely laser burned directly onto the exhaust pipe itself. While the host found this kind of funny for its sheer novelty, it was also immediately recognized as a distinct sign of its Chinese manufacturing, suggesting maybe less refinement in production processes. Further translation errors were humorously spotted on the spec sheet, things like racing perform instead of racing performance, and even the comically nonsensical speed 20 minutes per minute. Clearly not a native English speaker writing that.
Okay, so some immediate signs of its budget origins. What about their initial perception of the quality, just from unboxing it and seeing it in the flesh, so to speak? Did it live up to any expectations, even low ones?
Well, despite the initial unglamorous reveal and those quirky, almost absurd translations, the host candidly admitted his hopes were pretty high for its appearance. And he ultimately found it pretty good looking, at least from the angle that I was looking at, which implies a certain visual appeal, maybe from a distance. He even cautiously remarked, "For China, they're getting better," suggesting a noticeable improvement in aesthetic quality compared to past experiences with similar budget imports. Surprisingly, the tires, often a component where budget bikes really cut corners, were from a brand called Cordial, which the host confidently claimed makes some of the best tires I've ever used, indicating a potential unexpected bright spot in component sourcing. That was positive. However, the language on the spec sheet continued to be a source of amusement and bewilderment, with phrases like engine power requirements and operation mass being particularly awkward and indicative of poor translation. So the general impression was that while it looked decent, especially given the incredibly low price point, the details and linguistic quirks clearly revealed its budget origins. He also humorously mentioned it was the most expensive thing I've ever bought from Walmart, playfully questioning whether it made him a baller or the exact opposite. Kind of sums up the experience, right?
Right. Assembling a motorcycle in a busy Walmart parking lot using only tools sourced from Walmart itself. That sounds like a true test of both ingenuity and, frankly, patience. What unexpected hurdles did they actually face during this unique assembly process?
Oh, it was definitely a rigorous test of resourcefulness and mechanical aptitude, for sure. Initially, they optimistically hoped the little toolkit that came with the bike would be enough for assembly, those basic wrenches and things. However, they quickly realized they needed something big enough to grab this axle, For the front wheel, a specialized large wrench or socket not included in the bike's basic toolkit. This necessitated another unplanned trip back inside Walmart to find and purchase a specific large tool. This immediately demonstrated a significant gap in the whole fly to a location with no tools assembly scenario they kind of envisioned. You need more than the basics. But then a truly significant and frankly alarming safety concern emerged when they were assembling the front wheel. See, traditional motorcycle forks universally have an axle bolt that passes through the wheel, plus additional pinch bolts on the fork lowers. These pinch bolts crunch that together, so there's no possible way the axle could loosen up and fall out while you're riding. It's a critical safety feature. The Walmart bike, however, alarmingly does not have that. It completely lacked this crucial secondary safety mechanism, just the main axle bolt. This led the host to critically wonder, and I think rightly so, if the manufacturers never seen a motorcycle before or they never wrenched on one before. It highlights a profound lack of fundamental motorcycle engineering knowledge or maybe cost-cutting gone too far. He was forced to tighten that single axle bolt pretty tight because I don't want the front wheel to fall off while riding, which, raises a critical and very serious question about fundamental safety standards and engineering oversight in these directly imported, mass-produced models. That's a big red flag.
Wow, yeah, that's a huge safety concern right there. A front wheel potentially coming loose is terrifying. And beyond that critical safety issue, what about the overall ergonomics, the feel of the controls, or just the general fit and finish of the bike once it was somewhat assembled? Did it feel solid?
Well, beyond that critical safety issue with the front wheel, the host noted that the worst things about it are the buttons. Specifically, the switches on the handlebars for the lights, horn, turn signals, that kind of thing. He described them as looking like a copy of 20-year-old buttons and simply having a bad tactile feel, cheap and flimsy. He couldn't quite put his finger on exactly why they felt so subpar, but one was even described as slimy. It just adds to the general impression of low-quality control. He also found the fit and finish lacking in other areas, like bolts that don't visually fit properly or are obviously mismatched in style or material. He commented that if it was a Yamaha or something, it would look a lot tighter, implying a much higher standard of precision and aesthetic integration from established brands. You expect better component matching. So these aesthetics and assembly issues were kind of a recurring theme throughout his experience. Little things add up. He even jokingly remarked that the keyhole for the passenger seat, which is a standard feature on most sport bikes, made him truly feel like he was unboxing a legitimate crotch rocket. A term, he notes, pretty sure started out as an insult, but then we claimed it as our own, sort of leaning into the subculture of sport bike riders. But clearly, that detailed attention to missing refinement and proper fit and finish was absent on this budget bike.
Okay, so once this Walmart crotch rocket was miraculously assembled, despite the challenges, how did it actually perform out on the road? Was it a thrilling ride given its sporty looks, or was the performance as budget as the price?
The performance metrics, especially for a bike that visually mimicked a sport bike, were quite frankly surprising and almost comically underwhelming, not thrilling at all. The bike, advertised as a 250cc model, shockingly only produced about 5 to 7 horsepower. Now, that is an incredibly low figure, especially when you directly compare it to, say, an old Ninja 250s that were somewhere in the 30 horsepower range. It's a stark contrast that the host vividly called an amazing, incredible feat of taking a 250cc motor and it only makes 5 to 7 horsepower. Almost impressive in its lack of power. Its 0 to 60 mile per hour acceleration time was a whopping 14 seconds, which he humorously and accurately compared to the leisurely pace of a first-generation non-turbo smart car. Not exactly neck-snapping. It barely has a top speed of 70 mile per hour, making it highway-capable only in the most generous sense and probably struggling to keep up. And it exhibits a completely flat power curve, meaning in his words, it just never came in with any amount of power anywhere. There was no surge, no excitement, and certainly no thrilling acceleration typically associated with anything called a crotch rocket. It was pretty tame.
Okay, yeah, that certainly doesn't sound very thrilling for something dubbed a crotch rocket. Not at all. But despite this really underwhelming performance for a sport bike look-alike, did the host still find a place for it in the market? Is there actually a niche for this kind of vehicle?
Surprisingly, yes. Despite the undeniably underwhelming performance, particularly for a bike that looks like a sport bike, the host concluded there is indeed a spot in the market for a cool-looking bike that makes very little power and is super cheap. He intelligently suggests it's ideally suited for people who need to learn how to ride first and then learn how to ride something fast. It's a stepping stone. It allows new riders to look good while they're doing it, without having to start their motorcycling journey on something like, say, a Honda Twin Star, which he mentioned is a much older, significantly less aesthetically pleasing learner bike. Looks matter to some beginners. The overall look of the Walmart bike was actually praised as pretty cool, being, as he put it, a counterfeit, or more generously, it's a copy of the first-generation Kawasaki Ninja 300. So it mimics a desirable look. Its appeal, therefore, lies less in performance clearly and much more in its visual mimicry and its extreme affordability. It serves as a very, very low-cost entry point for aspiring riders who might prioritize aesthetics over raw power, at least initially.
Okay, so how does this rather unconventional online self-assembly experience directly compare to what you typically get walking into a traditional dealership? What are the key differences in terms of price, the time involved, and the overall service you receive? The video touched on this, right?
Yes, the YouTube video directly provides this stark comparison. It's very illuminating. At a Harley dealership, for instance, when asked for new bikes under $2,700, which was the price point of the Walmart bike, they candidly stated they couldn't offer a new Harley for that price. No surprise there. But they could certainly discuss a down payment on one of these beautiful Harleys, standard sales pitch. However, they did have some used bikes available in that approximate price range, things like a 2014 Triumph or a 2012 Super 10 Air. But, and this is a significant caveat, some of these used bikes do not run, highlighting the inherent risk of buying budget used options without inspection or warranty. Buyer beware. For a cash purchase of a pre-selected running used bike, dealers claimed it would take only about 30 to 45 minutes to complete the paperwork and ride out, which the host acknowledged was a lot faster than I thought, challenging those common perceptions of slow, bureaucratic dealership processes. Another Honda dealer, visited for comparison within the same price bracket, offered a brand new 110cc twist-and-go scooter, highlighting that legitimate entry-level, fully assembled, and warrantied options do exist from traditional brands within that budget range, even if it's not a crotch rocket.
Right. So beyond just the transaction speed, what are the core, maybe intangible benefits that a traditional dealership inherently provides? Things that an online, direct-to-your-door purchase simply can't replicate, especially when it comes to a complex, potentially dangerous machine like a motorcycle.
Yeah, the traditional dealership experience strongly emphasizes several key benefits that are incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for an online direct-to-consumer model to replicate effectively. Firstly, they offer access to reputable brands, right? Ensuring a certain standard of quality, reliability, and robust manufacturer backing and support. You know who made it. Crucially, dealerships employ certified technicians who specialize in specific brands. So, for example, a Honda guy will service your Honda. They ensure expert and specialized service tailored to that manufacturer's specifications. This expertise also extends powerfully to warranty claims. Dealerships provide a real warranty with a real company. That's in stark contrast to an online-only brand where, as the source notes, you try and call and you can't get a hold of anybody if a problem arises with an online purchase, potentially leaving you completely stranded with a faulty product. Dealerships also boast immediate parts availability through a full certified retail parts department. This is absolutely vital for timely maintenance and repairs, minimizing downtime for the rider. Try getting a specific part for that Walmart bike quickly. Critically, bikes purchased from a dealership are always pre-assembled and undergo a rigorous pre-inspection process by trained technicians. This ensures they are perfect for you and, most importantly, safe to ride before you ever take delivery. They handle that crucial front wheel assembly, for instance. The personal touch is also highlighted as a significant differentiator, with one dealer in the video even offering his personal cell phone number for direct customer support. You won't get that from Walmart.com. This contrasts sharply with the crate bike off the internet scenario, where if there's a problem, often there's nothing you can do about it easily. You might have to try and send the whole bike back and gamble on buying another one, leading to immense hassle, uncertainty, and potential safety risks. It's a completely different level of assurance. So this deep dive really reveals a stark, almost philosophical contrast, doesn't it? On one side, you have the raw, undeniable affordability, and maybe the adventurous, albeit risky, DIY spirit of an online big box purchase. On the other, you have the established reliability, the comprehensive service network, and the personal assurance that only a traditional dealership can truly provide. Each model offers a distinct value proposition, with inherent trade-offs in convenience, cost, and critically, safety.
When you think about making a major, complex purchase, like a vehicle, motorcycle, car, whatever, what truly matters most to you in that decision-making process? Is it the absolute lowest price and maybe the thrill of a do-it-yourself project? Or is it the profound peace of mind that comes with established service, expert support, and knowing someone qualified has already handled those critical safety checks? Where do your priorities lie? 5. The dealership dilemma. Deconstructing traditional versus direct-to-consumer models. Okay, the tension we've been discussing, this friction between traditional dealerships and these direct-to-consumer, or DTC, models, it isn't unique to motorcycles at all, is it? It's really a colossal battle playing out across the entire automotive industry and, frankly, many other retail sectors, too. Tesla famously pioneered the DTC model, seemingly saving thousands of dollars per vehicle by cutting out that middleman, the dealer. But surprisingly, traditional automakers with their extensive, decades-old dealer networks are proving remarkably resilient. They're fighting back. So the big question becomes, is direct-to-consumer truly the inevitable future? Or are traditional dealerships finding powerful new ways to adapt, innovate, and maybe even thrive in this rapidly changing landscape?
Yeah, this is a crucial strategic battle, and it reveals so much about market power, legal structures, and consumer psychology. It's fascinating. We'll need to dissect the complex economic and legal underpinnings that provide traditional dealerships with their surprising, enduring power. Why are they so entrenched? We'll then thoroughly examine the significant challenges Tesla still faces despite its initial, well-publicized cost savings and disruption. It's not all smooth sailing. After that, we'll explore why traditional automakers are cleverly leveraging their existing, vast infrastructure of their dealers to compete incredibly effectively, even in new emerging markets like electric vehicles. They're using their strengths. And finally, we'll consider the crucial evolving consumer preferences that are ultimately shaping this dynamic and really unpredictable landscape. What do people actually want?
So why is it so incredibly hard for manufacturers, even powerful disruptive ones like Tesla, to simply cut out the middleman, the dealership, and sell directly to consumers? What exactly gives these traditional dealerships so much long-standing power and influence? It almost feels like they're a protected species sometimes.
It's a really multifaceted issue, and it's deeply rooted in historical economic structures and some very powerful legal frameworks, especially at the state level. State governments, for instance, derive truly significant revenue from auto dealers. This isn't trivial money we're talking about. New car dealerships alone account for about 20% of all state sales taxes in many jurisdictions. That's a huge chunk of state budgets. Furthermore, auto dealerships collectively represent a considerable portion of local retail employment, often 7 to 8% of all retail employment across the state. And the new car dealerships generate the bulk of these jobs and the associated income and sales taxes. This immense economic importance translates directly into significant political power. You can bet on that. Dealership associations wield immense influence over local legislatures, which leads to the implementation and, importantly, the rigorous enforcement of state franchise laws. These laws, in many states, effectively almost guarantee dealership profitability and survival, albeit offered at the expense of manufacturer profits, by legally mandating that dealer intermediary. You have to sell through them. This long-standing system has been described by some as just tradition, but also as a powerful fail-safe for the economy. The idea is that it aimed to protect manufacturers from over-leveraging themselves by decentralizing the huge financial risks and responsibilities associated with sales, maintaining vast amounts of inventory, and managing expensive physical facilities all across the country. It spreads the risk.
Okay, so it's a powerful combination of jobs and tax revenue, which then translates directly into considerable political power and legislative protection. Makes sense. But it's also widely known that consumers often express immense frustration with the traditional dealership experience. You hear descriptions like the worst, with salespeople sometimes being perceived as, well, asshole-ish and inventing inflated prices and all sorts of hidden fees.
That's a deeply common sentiment. Absolutely. You hear it all the time. It stems from widespread consumer experiences where they genuinely feel like they're getting bent over or being exploited. Many consumers perceive car salesmen as completely useless and bringing zero extra value beyond maybe providing test drives and handling the mountain of paperwork. And the typical dealership strategy, as one source critically notes, is often to hide the $10K in add-on crap behind the monthly payment so it is easier to swallow. Leveraging consumer emotion and maybe financial illiteracy rather than just offering transparent, upfront pricing. This focus on maximizing profit through add-ons and opaque pricing has certainly fueled a lot of public frustration. However, there's also a compelling counterargument from the industry itself, which is worth considering. They argue that dealerships actually save the automakers money in the long run by absorbing the expensive and hard-to-scale costs of managing local sales operations, maintaining physical facilities, handling service departments, and managing extensive costly inventory. In this view, they function as a crucial partnership model, almost like IT hardware resellers or independent distributors in other industries, allowing manufacturers to focus solely on design, engineering, and production, rather than the complex, localized, and capital-intensive challenges of retail sales and aftermarket service. It's presented as a fundamental division of labor that benefits both sides.
Right. Now, Tesla has certainly proved that a direct-to-consumer or DTC model could work. They claim to save about $2,000 per vehicle by completely cutting out that dealer margin. So what's genuinely stopping every other major automaker from just following suit, or even Tesla from fully dominating the entire market with this seemingly more efficient model? Why hasn't it taken over completely?
Well, while Tesla unequivocally proved the concept that a direct-to-consumer model could work, and indeed realized those initial savings of about $2,000 per vehicle by eliminating the traditional dealer margin. Scaling it globally are two completely different challenges. Moving from a niche player to mass market dominance is incredibly difficult under this model. Tesla has faced what can only be described as a persistent legal nightmare, constantly fighting 50 different state franchise laws across the United States. It's a state-by-state battle. For example, they faced new challenging lawsuits in Wisconsin just in January 2025, and proposed legislation in New York in March 2025, specifically aimed at revoking their sales permits and restricting their operations. These fights never seem to end. This persistent politicization of retail models, combined sometimes with reports suggesting that Elon Musk's high-profile political involvement is, at times, affecting regulatory sentiment. It adds complexity far beyond traditional business considerations to their business model. It's not just a straightforward commercial battle against entrenched interests. It's an exhausting, ongoing political and legal struggle that drains resources and limits their ability to expand freely in every state.
That's truly fascinating. It's really interesting to observe that while Tesla is grappling with these continuous legal battles, the traditional automotive giants like GM are quietly and effectively leveraging their existing vast dealer networks to compete remarkably well, even in the burgeoning electric vehicle, or EV, space. GM's EV sales, for instance, surged by over 100% in Q2 recently, with Chevrolet actually becoming the best-selling EV brand for a time. How are they achieving this without abandoning their traditional model?
Yeah, this is a crucial and often overlooked point in the whole narrative. The established players aren't just surviving. They're thriving by adapting rather than revolutionizing. That's the key takeaway. They were not tearing down their existing robust structures. Instead, they're intelligently integrating the best parts of the DTC playbook, things like online configuration tools, more transparent pricing initiatives, direct digital customer engagement, integrating those elements into their already powerful existing infrastructure. The core strength of traditional dealerships, remember, lies in their established service networks, immediate parts availability, and local relationships. That's incredibly valuable. This is a robust, highly profitable, and essential revenue stream that pure DTC models struggle to replicate from scratch. It takes years and billions to build that. To illustrate this point, in 2024, while average dealership net pre-tax profit from new vehicle sales dropped significantly across the industry, service and parts revenue actually grew, reaching an impressive $156.46 billion nationally. This represented a substantial 13.2% of total dealership sales. It demonstrates it's a stable and essential pillar of their business model, one that direct sales companies would have to build from the ground up at immense cost and time. This adaptability, leveraging their existing service strength, is their real competitive advantage.
Okay, so if both models are adapting and finding ways to compete, what do consumers actually want in this evolving automotive landscape? It seems like there's a blend of desires, doesn't it? They seem to want fixed, transparent pricing like Tesla offers, but they also seem to value the physical presence and the services of a traditional dealership. How do we reconcile those seemingly contradictory preferences?
The research is actually quite clear on this, and it points directly towards a sophisticated hybrid preference among most consumers. A significant 77% of consumers prefer fixed pricing. They want that highly sought-after Tesla-like transparency and simplicity in the purchasing process. The desire for clarity and no-haggle pricing is incredibly strong. However, equally compelling, 61% still want to complete their purchases at dealerships. This indicates a continued strong need for a physical touchpoint, the ability to test drive easily, and access to local support and service. Now, this isn't really a contradiction in consumer preference. Rather, it's a precise roadmap for the future of automotive retail. Consumers are essentially saying, give me the transparency and simplicity of the online fixed price model pioneered by Tesla, but let me still have the convenience, the physical presence, the hands-on service, and the local support network of traditional dealerships. They want the best of both. And this trend is further accelerated by generational shifts. Millennials and Gen Z, who together constitute a substantial 31% and 21% of likely car buyers in early 2025, respectively. They expect seamless, highly transparent, and personalized experiences that, frankly, neither a pure direct-to-consumer model nor a purely traditional model can consistently deliver entirely on its own. They demand that hybrid approach. So the automotive retail landscape isn't really experiencing a dramatic, destructive disruption like some predicted. It's undergoing a more sophisticated and intelligent evolution. Traditional dealerships, powerfully buoyed by strong regulatory protections and their crucial, often underestimated service revenue, are shrewdly adapting. They're meeting modern consumer demands for transparency and digital convenience. Meanwhile, pure direct-to-consumer models, despite their initial innovative appeal, continue to face significant legal and logistical hurdles. This is effectively forcing an inevitable integration of the best parts of both worlds for any player wanting to truly succeed and scale in the future.
When you next consider a significant vehicle purchase, how might your understanding of these complex and often hidden forces at play? The regulatory protection, the power of service revenue, the consumer desire for hybrid models. How might that understanding empower you to negotiate more effectively? Or perhaps to value different, previously unseen aspects of the buying experience more deeply? What new questions will you ask yourself and the seller? 6. The hybrid future, omnichannel integration, and AI's transformative role. Okay, the data we've just explored really clearly points towards an undeniable hybrid future in automotive retail. A future where that digital convenience we all crave seamlessly meets the crucial physical presence and service we still seem to need. This omnichannel integration truly seems to be the winning formula for long-term success. But how exactly are companies actively bridging this complex gap? How are they creating that fluid experience for consumers? And what critical transformative role will advanced technologies like artificial intelligence or AI play in reshaping the entire sales and service experience for you, the buyer, in the coming years?
Right, this is where the future truly becomes tangible, where we see these concepts put into practice. We'll delve into successful real-world examples of these hybrid models in action. Mercedes-Benz, for instance, which has cleverly navigated this transition in Europe. We'll then discuss the accelerating electrification timeline across the industry and how this rapid shift necessitates entirely new service models and infrastructure. You can't service an EV like a gas car. Crucially, we'll then explore in detail how artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming a great equalizer in the market, fundamentally transforming not just customer engagement during the sale, but also the entire vehicle lifecycle afterwards. And finally, we'll outline the key actionable strategies for companies looking to future-proof their operations and really thrive in this rapidly evolving landscape.
The idea of a hybrid model advantage is really intriguing. It suggests that blend of the old and the new is actually superior to either extreme. And you give us a concrete example of how this kind of omni-channel integration actually works effectively in practice for a major automotive brand. How did Mercedes do it?
Yeah, the Mercedes-Benz European agency model is a perfect living example of successful omni-channel integration that effectively blends digital sales with essential dealer support. They saw a remarkable 17% market share increase in 2024 in regions where they implemented it. They did this by enacting a carefully controlled transition that maintained dealer relationships while simultaneously adding direct-to-consumer elements for things like online sales configuration and transparent fixed pricing. This clearly demonstrates that the path forward isn't necessarily about outright revolution, tearing everything down. It's more about thoughtful evolution, where existing strengths like the dealer network are leveraged while cleverly integrating new digitally driven capabilities. However, it's vital to note that not every experiment in this complex space works perfectly right out of the gate. Volkswagen, for instance, famously paused its direct-to-customer battery electric vehicle, or BEV, sales in December 2024. They cited acknowledged complexity and poor customer experience as the reasons, and BMW adjusted its full rollout timeline for similar agency models. These setbacks highlight that execution is everything in this nuanced transition. It underscores that simply adopting a new model without meticulous planning and flawless implementation can lead to significant and costly challenges. It's a testament to how difficult this integration truly is in practice.
Okay, so beyond just the sales process, how is the rapidly accelerating timeline for electric vehicles, with so many car makers shifting their focus so quickly influencing these retail models, particularly on the crucial service side? EVs have very different maintenance needs, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. The electrification timeline is accelerating every aspect of the automotive sector, and its impact on service models is profound. It's a massive shift. Global electric car sales are projected to increase by a substantial 25% just in 2025, topping an astonishing 20 million units worldwide. The growth is exponential. By 2027, electric vehicles are forecast to account for an unprecedented 1 in 3 new vehicle registrations in Europe. Think about that 1 in 3. This rapid and widespread shift will fundamentally reshape service revenue models for both traditional dealers and direct-to-consumer manufacturers alike. Electric vehicles, by their very nature, have significantly fewer moving parts compared to internal combustion engines. No oil changes, fewer fluids, simpler drivetrains in some ways. This means different and often less frequent maintenance schedules, but they also require specialized knowledge for high-voltage systems, different diagnostic tools, unique charging equipment, which directly impacts those traditional service profit centers for dealerships. Dealerships have historically relied heavily on things like oil changes, tune-ups, and complex engine repairs. That revenue stream is changing dramatically.
And this is precisely where traditional dealerships might find themselves with an unexpected yet potentially significant advantage over the newer direct-to-consumer brands, isn't it, in service?
Precisely. That's the key insight. Traditional dealerships already possess the critical, pre-existing infrastructure that direct-to-consumer models have to build entirely from scratch. They have physical locations strategically spread out across the country. They have a workforce of trained technicians already experienced in complex vehicle systems, even if they need EV retraining. And crucially, they have long-standing, established service relationships with their customer base. People trust their local dealer for service. They have decades of experience in maintaining complex mechanical systems and a loyal customer base for service and parts. Direct-to-consumer models, in contrast, have to build all of this from scratch. That represents a massive capital investment, a significant logistical challenge, and a substantial time commitment. It's a huge barrier. This makes service model transformation a critical area where traditional players can powerfully leverage their existing strengths to maintain relevance and secure long-term profitability, even as the vehicles change.
Furthermore, it's worth noting that hybrid vehicle sales saw over 19% year-on-year growth in 2024 and are projecting to increase to over 23% in 2025. This strong, sustained growth in hybrids indicates a strong consumer preference for a middle ground in vehicle technology. People aren't jumping straight to full EV in massive numbers yet. And this perfectly mirrors the desire for hybrid retail approaches that cleverly blend traditional and modern elements. It suggests consumers value a transition rather than an abrupt total paradigm shift in how they buy and service cars.
Okay, you mentioned artificial intelligence or AI as potentially being a great equalizer in this evolving market. How precisely is this powerful technology transforming the interaction between buyers and sellers, and even the vehicle itself, throughout its entire life cycle?
Yet AI is rapidly becoming not just indispensable, but a truly transformative force. It's fundamentally altering how consumers interact with the buying process, and even how vehicles are experienced after the purchase. Research shows a significant shift in consumer trust and preference. A striking 44% of consumers now trust AI recommendations over salespeople. That's a huge number, indicating a growing comfort and reliance on algorithmic advice. Even more remarkably, 61% want AI agents to recommend vehicles, suggesting a strong desire for personalized, data-driven suggestions without that perceived sales pressure. Furthermore, buyers who have engaged with AI-powered chatbots report a 57% improvement in their dealership experience, suggesting that AI can dramatically enhance efficiency, responsiveness, and satisfaction in customer service roles, especially for initial inquiries and information gathering. This isn't a mere luxury add-on anymore. It really means AI integration isn't a competitive advantage anymore. It's a necessity. It's becoming table stakes for companies looking to remain relevant, meet evolving consumer expectations, and deliver a truly seamless modern experience.
And how does this powerful AI integration connect to the vehicles themselves? Are we talking about genuinely intelligent cars becoming the norm now?
Absolutely. This deeply ties into the rapid growth of the software-defined vehicle market, which is expected to reach an astonishing 7.6 million units globally in 2025. This concept fundamentally changes how vehicles are updated, maintained, and even monetized throughout their entire life cycle. It's a paradigm shift. When vehicles can receive over-the-air updates, like your phone, provide remote diagnostics back to the manufacturer or dealer, offer subscription-based features unlocked through software, like heated seats maybe, and adapt their performance based on real-time data, the relationship between the manufacturer, the dealer, and the consumer becomes much more continuous and complex. It's no longer a one-off sale. You're no longer simply selling a car as a one-time transaction. You're selling an ongoing service relationship and a dynamic product that continuously evolves and improves over time. This profound shift further reinforces why AI-powered personalization, predictive maintenance alerts, and continuous engagement are absolutely crucial for effectively managing this extended and interconnected customer lifecycle. It's about building a living, breathing relationship with the vehicle and its owner, powered by data and AI.
Okay, so bringing all these crucial threads together, the hybrid models, electrification, AI, what does the absolute winning formula look like? What are the non-negotiables for companies aiming to be the undisputed automotive retail leaders from, say, 2025 to 2027?
The leaders will be those who master omni-channel integration between digital and physical touchpoints. That is the absolute cornerstone. This means delivering transparent pricing without sacrificing service quality or choice, the delicate balance consumers clearly crave. It also means leveraging AI effectively to enhance rather than replace human interaction, ensuring technology empowers and assists rather than alienates the customer. The human touch still matters. Critically, companies must adapt to dynamic regulatory environments while actively advocating for sensible policy evolution that supports innovation and consumer choice. True success requires working within existing frameworks while pushing for reasonable reforms in those state franchise laws that might hinder progress or new models. Now, for traditional dealer networks, immediate actionable strategies include implementing fixed-price online sales pilots with real-time inventory integration. To meet those digital consumer expectations head-on, they absolutely must launch certified EV technician training programs aggressively to address the shift in vehicle technology and ensure service readiness. They can't afford to fall behind there. And they need to deploy AI-powered CRM systems for predictive customer engagement to anticipate customer needs, personalize interactions, and improve retention. For the direct-to-consumer manufacturers like Tesla or Rivian, it's really about building sustainable, robust infrastructure. That's their challenge. This means developing state-by-state legal roadmaps for franchise law navigation to overcome those persistent regulatory hurdles. It means establishing independent service networks or strategic partnerships for crucial post-sale support. You have to service the vehicles you sell, and creating inviting pop-up experience centers or smaller showrooms for that necessary physical engagement in test drives.
Okay, and are there universal strategies that apply to everyone in this automotive retail space, regardless of their model?
Yes, definitely. For all market participants, future-proofing strategies universally involve continuous investment in omni-channel platforms that unify the customer journey across all touchpoints online, mobile, in person. They must develop strong first-party data capabilities for customer retention and personalization to truly understand and serve their customers effectively. Data is king. They need to implement AI solutions that enhance rather than replace human interactions, ensuring a seamless, efficient, yet still personal experience. And they must proactively monitor and ideally influence franchise law evolution, preparing for potential federal intervention and state-level restrictions to ensure long-term adaptability. Developing flexible business models that can adapt to changing regulations is absolutely paramount in this incredibly dynamic environment. You can't be rigid. So the future of automotive retail is definitively hybrid, no question. It's unequivocally driven by insistent consumer demand for transparency, ultimate convenience, and comprehensive service. Artificial intelligence will be absolutely instrumental in personalizing this experience, making it more efficient and tailored to individual needs. And ultimately, the successful companies will be those that can seamlessly integrate their digital and physical touchpoints, all while astutely navigating incredibly complex and often unpredictable regulatory landscapes.
As the power sports and broader automotive worlds rapidly embrace these powerful new technologies and respond to the ever-shifting demands of consumers, what specific emerging trend or feature excites you most about the future of driving or riding? And how do you personally envision it enhancing your own experience with these vehicles, whether that's how you research, purchase, or even maintain your next ride in the coming years? What kind of integrated, seamless experience would truly impress you and maybe redefine your perception of vehicle ownership? 7. Chinese manufacturing giants. Lawson and Zongshen's global footprint. We've discussed the rise of Chinese motorcycles in, broad strokes, hitting the main points. But let's get much more specific now, maybe peel back the curtain a bit. China is home to some truly massive manufacturing players, real giants like Lawson and Zongshen, companies that are quietly but powerfully shaping the global power sports industry in significant ways, often behind the scenes, maybe without most consumers realizing it. What's their history? How do they operate at such incredible scale? And what's their ambitious mission to capture an even larger share of the world market?
Yeah, to really understand their impact, it helps to look at these specific players. Well, We'll trace the history and the sheer scale of Lonson Motor Co., Ltd., for example, examining its vast production capabilities, its robust financial performance, and paying particular attention to its strategic partnerships, especially with a premium brand like BMW. That's very telling. We'll then reveal a major and often overlooked consolidation that has taken place within China itself, involving Lonson and Zhongshan, creating an even larger industrial force. And finally, we'll touch upon some fascinating real-world experiences from riders who put these bikes through the ultimate test in truly challenging environments, which might dispel some common myths.
Okay, so Lonson Motor Co. Ltd., established back in 1992, is widely described as one of China's leading manufacturers. What's the comprehensive scope of their operation today beyond just motorcycles? Are they diversified?
Lonson, which is headquartered in Chongqing, a major industrial hub in China, definitely began its journey specializing in producing small displacement motorcycles, primarily for the huge domestic mass market. However, they've demonstrated remarkable strategic foresight and agility over the years, significantly expanding their product lines. Today, their portfolio includes not just larger, more sophisticated motorcycles, but also a wide and diverse range of generators and various engine types. These engines power everything from ATVs and UTVs to general-purpose industrial equipment, water pumps, things like that. This diversification has been absolutely key to their sustained growth. By 2023, Lonson had achieved truly impressive production figures, manufacturing over 1.5 million motorcycles annually. Just think about that volume. This staggering output firmly establishes them as one of the largest motorcycle manufacturers globally, placing them in the same league as some of the most recognized names in the industry, at least in terms of sheer production volume. Their popular models, like the Lonson LX150 and LX250, have gained considerable traction not only in their domestic Chinese market, but also increasingly in various international markets across Asia, South America, and even parts of Europe. This highlights their expanding global reach. As of 2022, their international sales were substantial, contributing approximately 25% a quarter of their total revenue, underscoring their serious commitment to global expansion beyond China's borders.
Okay, and what about their financial health and their underlying ownership structure? How stable and well-resourced are these manufacturing behemoths? Are they solid companies?
Lonson isn't just large in terms of volume. They are incredibly robust financially. They demonstrate consistent growth and strong profitability over the years. Their financial performance really reflects a well-managed and operationally efficient enterprise. There's significant market capitalization. The total value of their stock and their healthy stock performance on the Shanghai Stock Exchange reflects strong investor confidence. Confidence in their long-term strategy and their proven operational efficiency, particularly as they strategically diversify into lucrative new areas like electric vehicles and continue to expand their international footprint. Their ownership structure is largely controlled by Chongqing Lonson Group Co., Ltd., which holds a substantial stake, providing stability. But they also have a diverse base of other institutional and public investors, providing a solid foundation for their continued expansion and investment in future technologies. They're a major public company.
Now, what's truly fascinating here, and perhaps counterintuitive for some listeners, is their strategic partnerships, particularly with established premium global brands like BMW. How precisely does that kind of collaboration work, and what does it signal about Lonson's actual capabilities and quality standards?
Yeah, this is absolutely critical to understanding their evolving reputation and their rapid technological advancement. It's a huge validator. In 2017, Lonson formed a significant and highly publicized joint venture with none other than BMW Motorrad, arguably one of the world's most prestigious motorcycle manufacturers. This partnership specifically involves Lonson producing the engines and other critical components for BMW's acclaimed F750 GS and F850 GS models, leveraging Lonson's robust and high-quality manufacturing capabilities. Now, this collaboration has profoundly boosted Lonson's reputation in high-performance motorcycle production. It clearly demonstrates their ability to meet the incredibly stringent quality, engineering, and performance standards demanded by a premium European brand known worldwide for its precision. You don't get to build BMW engines if your quality is poor. Lonson's commitment to innovation is further evidenced by their substantial ongoing investment in research and development. They consistently allocate a significant portion of their annual revenue. One source said 6%, another 10%, but either way, it's substantial into R&D initiatives.
This has led to an impressive portfolio of over 300 patents related to advanced engine technology and innovative motorcycle design. This showcases their genuine drive to achieve and maintain technological leadership, not just crank out volume production cheaply.
It sounds like they're not content to just manufacture components for others, though. They're also keenly focused on the future of mobility themselves, right? Are they making significant moves into electric vehicles?
Yes, absolutely, and quite aggressively, too. It's a major strategic pillar for them now. They've actively and strategically diversified into electric vehicles as a major growth area for the company. Lonson boldly launched its first dedicated line of electric motorcycles back in 2023, and these electric models already counted for a notable 10% of their total motorcycle sales within that very first year. That's rapid adoption. They have ambitious projections for this segment too, anticipating it will contribute around 15% of their total revenue by 2025. This strategic pivot into electric vehicles aligns perfectly with the overwhelming global trend towards energy-efficient transportation solutions. Driven by environmental concerns, changing regulations worldwide, and evolving consumer preferences for cleaner, quieter, and potentially lower running cost vehicles, it really demonstrates their adaptability and foresight in anticipating future market demands and positioning themselves accordingly.
Okay, and how does Zhongshan, another major Chinese motorcycle company we mentioned, fit into this increasingly complex picture? Is there a direct relationship between these two giants?
Yeah, Zhongshan, which is indeed another colossal Chinese motorcycle company with its own expensive history and significant market presence, recently became the major shareholder of Lonson. This is an incredibly significant development within the Chinese industry itself, and maybe not widely known outside China. It effectively turned Zhongshan into the largest of the motorcycle companies in China by controlling a substantial portion of the combined market share of these two huge entities. This strategic move represents a major consolidation within the Chinese powersports industry. It reflects a clear and deliberate drive for even greater scale, enhanced efficiency through shared resources and R&D, and ultimately dominant market share, not only within their vast home country, but by extension, globally. A bigger player emerges. Interestingly, Zhongshan has also indicated a preference to now be called Zonson, perhaps signaling a brand refresh or a strategic move to differentiate its international identity as it looks outward more.
Now, there's also a compelling, almost legendary anecdote about the real-world reliability of some of these Chinese bikes, specifically Zhongshan in this case. Even when subjected to extreme conditions, it seems to directly challenge many of the negative stereotypes we hear.
Yes, exactly. Joe Burke, who's a well-known adventure writer and writes for the blog Exhaust Notes, recounts a truly impressive and often cited Western America adventure tour. It's become quite famous in riding circles. In this tour, a fleet of 15 Zhongshan motorcycles, specifically the RX-3 models, which are imported and rebranded by CSC Motorcycles for the American market, undertook a truly rigorous and demanding journey. A 5,000-mile ride from Southern California all the way to Sturgis, South Dakota, then west across the U.S. to the Pacific Ocean, and finally riding the Pacific coast back down to Southern California. That's a serious trip. The remarkable part of this epic journey, as Burke emphatically emphasizes, is that they didn't have a single breakdown across all 15 bikes over 5,000 miles. Not one. This incredible feat, he notes with some amusement, was giving the internet trolls meltdowns because it directly and powerfully challenges some of those deeply ingrained negative perceptions about Chinese bike quality and long-term durability that have circulated online for years. Burke further reinforces this by describing the Zhongshan RX-3 as having a beautiful engine and being one of the best and most comfortable bikes I ever owned, further solidifying its unexpected reliability and user satisfaction from a very seasoned adventure rider.
That's an incredible testament to their durability in a controlled, albeit long-distance, tour setting. But what about the actual day-to-day riding experience in China itself? Especially given the notoriously chaotic Chinese traffic conditions, does that present a different picture of how these bikes perform or hold up?
Yeah, this raises a crucial and often humorous point about the practicalities of riding these motorcycles in their primary home market. Joe Burke also vividly describes riding in China itself, where he notes, quite bluntly, that Chinese drivers and cars do not respect motorcycles at all. He explains that if a car wants to occupy your spot on the road, they just move over. And it's not that they don't see you, they just don't care. There's a clear cultural hierarchy of cars over two-wheeled vehicles. He recounts actually experiencing an anxiety attack due to the sheer enormity of the insanity that is riding a motorcycle in China. With constant unpredictable threats from weaving cars, massive trucks cutting you off, and even pedestrians stepping out without looking. This provides a very different and quite harrowing context for how these bikes perform and survive in their chaotic home market. It's different than the controlled environment of a long-distance tour in the U.S. It highlights the extreme, often brutal conditions they're actually designed to withstand in their domestic market, which, paradoxically, probably contributes to their overall robustness, even if the riding experience there is incredibly stressful. They have to be tough to survive daily life in China. So Lonson and Zonhin, now effectively combined, represent the truly formidable scale, the rapidly evolving sophistication of Chinese motorcycle manufacturing. Their strategic partnerships with Western giants like BMW, combined with significant investments in R&D and a clear, aggressive move into EVs, unmistakably indicate a long-term global ambition. They're not just focused inward. And the major consolidation within the Chinese market itself underscores an even greater drive for efficiency, economies of scale, and ultimately dominant market share on the world stage.
Considering the truly proven reliability of some of these bikes in demanding tours, like that Zongshin example, and the sheer scale and financial muscle of their manufacturers, what deep-seated preconceptions about Chinese manufacturing might you, the listener, need to re-examine? How does this deep dive into these specific, often overlooked companies fundamentally change your perspective on their global impact and maybe the potential quality of their products going forward? 8. The Walmart effect on retail and communities. Beyond just motorcycles. Okay, we've explored Walmart's rather surprising foray into motorcycle sales online, but let's be clear, this is just one very visible, maybe slightly quirky example of a much broader, far-reaching phenomenon. The Walmart effect, it's a widely recognized term that describes how this retail giant profoundly impacts the communities it operates in, both positively and negatively. It's often heralded for its undeniable low prices, which is a clear benefit to consumers' wallets. But what's the deeper, more complex, and sometimes quite controversial story about its true influence on local economies, on small businesses trying to compete, and even on the very social fabric of towns across the globe?
Yeah, the Walmart effect is indeed a fascinating and often intensely debated topic in economics and sociology. We'll delve into the specific criticisms leveled against Walmart regarding its impact on community wealth and local employment, often revealing perhaps unintended but significant consequences. We'll then connect this to its strategic and highly successful use of private label brands, its own store brand as a major revenue driver, and a powerful competitive tool against national brands. And finally, we'll broaden the discussion to understand how this formidable retail model influences global supply chains, particularly reliance on imports, and how it shapes fundamental consumer behavior, impacting industries far beyond just power sports, reaching into nearly every aspect of our daily shopping lives.
Right. The Walmart effect is a term that carries a lot of weight, often negative weight, when describing its influence on local communities. What does current research, particularly the newer studies, suggest about this impact, beyond just the obvious benefit of offering low prices to shoppers?
Well, new research strongly suggests that the company, despite its famous low prices, actually makes the communities it operates in poorer, even taking into account its famous low prices. That's a pretty stark finding, and this recent confirmation aligns with and strengthens what was previously studied a couple of decades ago, indicating this isn't a new issue, but rather a persistent and perhaps systemic one associated with their business model. Walmart is frequently accused of aggressively undercutting all the town stores, effectively driving local independent businesses out of business through sheer scale and relentless pricing power. It's hard to compete with their buying power. Once these local businesses are gone, Walmart often becomes the town's largest employer, which sounds good on the surface. However, critics contend that if Walmart itself faces a significant threat later on, or makes a strategic change, they might then close the store, leaving the town worse off than before they even arrived, potentially creating a retail desert with few alternatives. This whole process, as the argument goes, effectively sucks capital out of the community. The profits don't stay local. In stark contrast, local stores circulate capital within their own communities, keeping money flowing within the local economy through local ownership, local sourcing where possible, and local employment where owners live nearby. Critics argue that this leads to a net reduction in overall community wealth and economic vitality over the long term, despite the initial, undeniable appeal of those everyday low prices.
Okay, so it's not just about standard market competition then, but potentially a fundamental structural shift in how money and capital flow within a town, altering its whole economic ecosystem. What about Walmart's employment practices? Those have also drawn significant criticism over the years, haven't they?
Indeed. Yeah, their labor management strategy is often a central point of contention and public debate. Critics argue that Walmart's approach is designed around keeping as many employees as possible part-time to limit their access to company-sponsored benefits, such as affordable health insurance and retirement plans. This strategic decision to maximize part-time employment while minimizing labor costs for the company has profound implications for the workers and the community. In turn, it can unfortunately force these employees, who often cannot make ends meet on part-time wages and limited benefits, to, quote, turn to state aid programs like Medicaid and other forms of public assistance just to survive. This effectively makes these government programs function as a subsidy for Walmart, meaning taxpayers are indirectly subsidizing the company's low labor costs. This raises an incredibly important ethical and economic question about corporate responsibility, and the burden potentially shifted from a massive, highly profitable corporation onto public welfare systems. The Walmart style of labor management is seen by some critics as a prime and often criticized example of the growing corporate greed of the 80s, prioritizing aggressive cost-cutting and maximizing shareholder value, perhaps over employee well-being, which ultimately externalizes some of those business costs onto the public taxpayer.
Right. Despite these significant criticisms regarding community impact and labor practices, Walmart's private label brands are undeniably incredibly successful. People buy them in huge quantities. What's their core strategy here with brands like Great Value or Equate? And how does this enable them to aggressively drive market share across so many different categories?
Walmart's private label brands, those iconic names like Great Value for groceries, Equate for health and beauty products, mainstays for home goods, they become widely synonymous with affordability and quality in the consumer's mind. They've built trust over time. Their strategy is built on a powerful triumvirate. First, rigorous cost control throughout the supply chain. Second, extensive customization to meet specific consumer needs and preferences identified through their vast sales data. And third, significantly increased profit margins for Walmart compared to carrying the equivalent national brands. They also cleverly foster deep brand loyalty through exclusive products that can only be found in its stores, creating a unique pull for consumers to shop there. The sheer scale is just staggering. They boast over 315 private label brands, offering more than 30,000 products across over 20 categories, from food to electronics to apparel. It's massive. The economics behind Walmart's private label success are compelling and demonstrate a very shrewd business model. By developing and owning their own house brands, they completely eliminate multiple layers of markup that typically inflate consumer prices, as products pass through various distributors and wholesalers before hitting the shelf. This direct-to-consumer approach, albeit through their own massive retail channel, allows them to offer comparable quality products at substantially lower price points than the national brand equivalents, while simultaneously generating higher profit margins for Walmart itself. This creates a kind of win-win for Walmart, providing customers with what they perceive as better value, while significantly boosting its own bottom line and market power.
Okay, so this strategic private label approach essentially allows them to dominate certain product categories and really control the market for those goods, correct? Giving them immense leverage.
That's absolutely correct, yeah. Private label goods now account for over 20% of total retail sales in many categories across the U.S., indicating a strong and growing consumer preference for store brands over traditional national brands, largely driven by price. This dominance is particularly pronounced in grocery and food products, where price sensitivity is highest for consumers making daily or weekly purchasing decisions. And notably, it's also strong in health and beauty categories, where ingredient transparency matters more and more to discerning buyers who compare labels closely. This private label strategy is absolutely instrumental in driving market share growth for Walmart, allowing them to capture a larger percentage of consumer spending in these key high-volume areas. It also powerfully demonstrates how a massive retailer can effectively build deep customer loyalty while simultaneously competing fiercely against both traditional national brands and emerging e-commerce platforms like Amazon. It's a powerful model for capturing significant market share by directly controlling the supply chain, the product development, the branding, and ultimately the pricing, giving them immense leverage in the market over suppliers and competitors alike.
When we combine this impactful Walmart effect on local communities with its heavy reliance on inexpensive goods primarily sourced from China, what are the broader, more systemic implications for the global economy and for our choices as consumers? Is there a hidden cost?
Yeah, this convergence raises a truly important and complex question. What is the overall, perhaps uncalculated cost of what are often termed cheap trinkets, the things we buy without much thought because the price is low? One source we looked at explicitly states a very provocative argument. Walmart brings goods from China to you. You buy them and destroy your own community. Now, that's a stark statement, but it highlights a deep tension where consumers undeniably want cheap trinkets. We're all driven by affordability and convenience to some degree. But perhaps we don't fully consider the long-term, far-reaching impact on jobs and manufacturing domestically, or the local flow of capital, or the broader societal consequences of our collective purchasing decisions favoring imports over locally made or sold goods. The discussion also notes that Digital platforms have turned an already exploitative and extractive marketplace, think Walmart, into an even more dehumanizing successor, think Amazon, hinting at a continuous, perhaps accelerating evolution of these market dynamics towards even greater centralization of wealth and potentially less local economic benefit or human interaction. And the tariffs we discussed earlier, they play a direct role in this equation too. Walmart has publicly indicated they may have to raise some prices if Trump tariffs take effect, highlighting how these global trade policies directly and immediately impact consumer costs, even for seemingly affordable goods. It creates a ripple effect across the entire interconnected global supply chain, showing how dependent the model is on low-cost imports. It's a complex web of cause and effect with no easy answers. So the Walmart effect is, without a doubt, a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. It's not black and white. While it offers undeniable and immediate benefits in affordability and accessibility through its vast retail network and its successful private labels, it simultaneously raises critical and often uncomfortable questions about its profound impact on local economies, the sustainability of small businesses, and its labor practices. Ultimately, it powerfully underscores how individual consumer choices, often primarily driven by price, can have far-reaching societal and significant economic consequences that extend far beyond the checkout aisle. Our choices matter collectively.
As a consumer navigating this complex retail landscape, how do you personally weigh the immediate, tangible benefit of a lower price against the broader, more long-term, and perhaps hidden impacts on your community and the global economy? What responsibility, if any, do you feel in that equation, and how might that influence your next purchasing decision, whether it's a motorcycle or just groceries? 9. The future of power sports. Trends, technologies, and customer centricity. Okay, looking ahead now, the power sports industry is clearly not just evolving, but undergoing a period of really intense and, frankly, exciting transformation. Beyond the dealership closures we discussed and the undeniable rise of new players like the Chinese manufacturers, what are the truly defining trends and cutting-edge technological advancements that are poised to fundamentally reshape the riding experience for enthusiasts like us? And what critical role will power sports dealerships themselves play in expertly navigating this complex, technologically driven future? They have to adapt too, right?
Yeah, the future of power sports looks dynamic and incredibly exciting. Lots of change coming. We'll dive deep into the major technological innovations that are actively transforming how we ride, things like groundbreaking electric powertrains, sophisticated advanced driver assistance systems, finding their way onto bikes and ATVs. We'll then discuss the evolving market trends, including that growing and undeniable demand for adventure vehicles and the increasing desire among riders for customization and personalization. And finally, and crucially, we'll pinpoint the essential, actionable strategies that power sports dealerships absolutely must adopt to not just survive, but truly thrive in this new era, focusing intensely on maximizing customer satisfaction and building those authentic community connections that are so important in this space.
Okay, let's shift our focus completely to the horizon then, to the future. What kind of groundbreaking technological innovations are we currently seeing that will fundamentally change how we ride and interact with power sports vehicles in the coming years?
A defining characteristic of the power sports industry's future is definitely its relentless pace of technological innovation. It's really reshaping the riding experience fundamentally. First, electric and hybrid powertrains. They are rapidly gaining an unstoppable momentum. You see it everywhere now. There's an accelerating focus on environmental sustainability, sure, but also increasingly stringent emission regulations worldwide. This is leading to a significant increase in the variety and performance of electric motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and even electric snowmobiles. These new powertrains offer distinct advantages: quieter operation, drastically reduced emissions, and potentially lower running costs over their lifetime due to less maintenance and cheaper fuel, appealing for multiple reasons. Second, advanced rider assistance systems, ADSS. These are rapidly becoming standard, moving beyond just cars and into the power sports world. Safety is paramount, right? Features like electronic stability control, ESC, for bikes, sophisticated traction control system, TCS, advanced anti-lock braking systems, ABS, often cornering ABS now, advanced braking systems with regenerative braking and electric models, and even collision avoidance systems using radar are becoming more seamlessly integrated. These sophisticated systems actively mitigate risks and enhance rider confidence, making power sports potentially more accessible and safer for a wider range of riders, including beginners. Third, connectivity and smart features are profoundly transforming the interaction between the rider and their vehicle. It's becoming much more integrated. Smartphone integration, often through dedicated apps, allows for real-time data monitoring. Things like speed, critical engine performance metrics, GPS navigation built in, proactive maintenance alerts telling you when service is due, and even remote diagnostics, simplifying troubleshooting, and potentially offering valuable theft tracking and recovery systems using GPS. That's a huge plus. Fourth, while full autonomy like in-cars is still deep in the realm of R&D for power sports and maybe not even desirable for many riders, we can certainly anticipate the gradual introduction of semi-autonomous features in certain contexts. Things like assisted steering in some situations, adaptive cruise control for touring bikes, or maybe automated throttle management in specific low-speed scenarios. These features could intelligently improve safety and accessibility in specific controlled conditions, particularly in less dynamic riding scenarios like long highway stretches. Fifth, the increased use of lightweight materials and advanced manufacturing techniques is delivering tangible benefits we can feel. Things like carbon fiber, advanced composites, lighter alloys are resulting in improved vehicle performance, increased fuel efficiency, enhanced durability, and reduced environmental footprint just due to using less material and energy. Concurrently, techniques like 3D printing are offering unprecedented opportunities for customization, efficient production of complex parts, and the creation of highly intricate geometries that were previously impossible or too expensive to manufacture traditionally. And finally, improved suspension and handling through innovations like smart dampening systems and adaptive settings that adjust automatically to terrain are providing a smoother, more controlled, and more comfortable experience across diverse terrains. This is particularly beneficial for demanding off-road vehicles. Alongside this, continuous advancements in tire technology are significantly enhancing grip, traction, and overall safety in all conditions. It all works together.
Okay, those technological advancements are really impressive. But beyond the tech itself, what are the broader market trends that are influencing consumer preferences? How are they profoundly shaping how the power sports industry operates and maybe delivers value beyond just the machine?
Yeah, several key market trends are actively shaping the future of power sports and significantly influencing consumer preferences, moving beyond just the hardware itself. Firstly, there's that growing demand for adventure and off-road vehicles. It seems unstoppable. The enduring human desire for outdoor exploration, getting away from it all, having rugged adventures, it continues to drive strong demand for ATVs, UTVs or side-by-sides, versatile dual-sport motorcycles, and specialized off-road snowmobiles. Consumers are increasingly seeking thrilling experiences in diverse environments, away from paved roads and urban centers. Secondly, a strong focus on customization and personalization is undeniably evident. People want their ride to be unique. Consumers increasingly want to personalize their vehicles to reflect their unique identity, their riding style, their specific needs. And shrewd dealerships are responding by offering more aftermarket parts, accessories, performance upgrades, and even bespoke build programs sometimes. Thirdly, an increased emphasis on sustainability and eco-friendly options is definitely driving demand for electric and hybrid models, as we discussed. But also for vehicles designed with a reduced environmental impact throughout their entire life cycle: manufacturing, use, disposal. Consumers are more aware. Fourthly, the growing popularity of multi-purpose vehicles like those utility task vehicles, UTVs, or side-by-sides is gaining significant traction. These versatile machines can be used for both recreation trail riding, exploring, and utility purposes, like farming, ranching, hunting, property maintenance. They're blurring traditional lines and expanding their appeal to a much broader demographic beyond just pure recreation. Fifth, experiential purchases and community building are becoming more critical than ever in this industry. Power sports is inherently social, right? It's community-driven. People ride together, share experiences. And dealerships are cleverly capitalizing on this by organizing events, fostering online communities and forums, sponsoring local rides and rallies, hosting demo days, all aimed at building deep brand loyalty and cultivating that powerful sense of shared passion among riders. It's about belonging. And lastly, significant demographic shifts are occurring. We're seeing a growing interest from younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, entering the market, and also a broader appeal to diverse groups, including more women riders and more urban riders who might use smaller bikes for commuting. This requires dealers to actively adapt their marketing strategies, their communication styles, and their product offerings to cater effectively to these new, vibrant, and sometimes different segments of the market.
Okay, given all these profound technological changes and these shifting market trends, what is the truly essential, indispensable role of dealerships in 2025 and beyond? How must they fundamentally adapt and evolve to not just survive, but genuinely thrive in this new era? What's the path forward for them?
The continued success of the power sports industry is intrinsically and deeply linked to the health and adaptability of its dealerships. They are the front line. and they must adapt significantly and strategically to thrive in this rapidly evolving landscape. Status quo isn't an option. They need to intensely focus on building a robust digital presence and online sales capability, investing heavily in user-friendly websites, comprehensive online parts catalogs, maybe even virtual showrooms, engaging social media strategies, and robust e-commerce platforms. This is essential for reaching a wider audience, especially younger buyers, and offering convenient online configuration tools, transparent pricing information, and streamlined financing options online. Meet customers where they are. Exceptional customer service remains absolutely paramount, perhaps even more so now. Demanding superior customer service at every single touchpoint, from that initial pre-sale consultation and personalized guidance to efficient post-sale support, reliable maintenance, and readily available parts. This is critical for fostering strong customer loyalty and positive word-of-mouth marketing, which is huge in this community. Providing diverse financing and leasing options is also essential for accessibility, making these expensive machines more attainable, including flexible financing and leasing options and competitive financing plans tailored for various credit profiles, and even offering financing for parts, accessories, and gear rolled into the main purchase. Dealerships must also develop and maintain specialized service and maintenance expertise. This is crucial. Investing heavily in continuous training and specialized equipment for the increasingly complex tech-laden vehicles entering the market, especially EVs. This requires ongoing training for technicians to keep skills sharp and significant investment in advanced diagnostic tools. They need to be the experts. Community engagement and events are crucial for building those deep, lasting relationships we talked about. Organizing engaging events, exciting test rides, dynamic demo days, participating in local rallies and charity rides. It cultivates a loyal customer base and fosters that powerful sense of shared passion and belonging that really defines the powersports world. Local dealers excel at this. And finally, data-driven decision-making is becoming vital for survival. No more just guessing. Leveraging sophisticated data analytics for understanding customer preferences, optimizing inventory management, accurately predicting market trends is crucial for streamlining operations, maximizing profitability, and making truly informed business decisions in a volatile and competitive market.
We even have a real-world example mentioned in the sources of a dealership that seems to be truly getting this right, embracing these changes, and setting a benchmark for others to follow.
Yes, that's right. Q9 Powersports USA is highlighted in one source as a leading example of excellence in expertly navigating this new landscape. They're strategically positioned as the most affordable powersports vehicle dealer in the United States. This positioning is apparently due to their impressive wide selection of vehicles, genuinely competitive pricing, exceptional customer service, and a user-friendly online experience that clearly caters to modern buyers. Their commitment to offering free shipping anywhere in the USA further streamlines the purchasing process for customers, significantly enhancing convenience and breaking down those geographical barriers often associated with buying large items. And beyond just the transactions, Q9 Powersports USA actively builds a vibrant community. Through engaging content, interactive online forums, organized rides, and local events, fostering lasting relationships and a powerful sense of shared passion among riders. This holistic, customer-centric approach really exemplifies a highly successful and adaptable model for the future of powersports retail. It shows it can be done. So the powersports industry is truly on the cusp of a dynamic and exciting future. It's powerfully driven by relentless innovation in electric powertrains, sophisticated advanced safety features, and intelligent smart connectivity. Dealerships are evolving far beyond mere sales points to become critical hubs for expert service, vibrant community building, and highly personalized experiences. In this new paradigm, data-driven strategies and strong integrated digital presences are proving to be absolutely key to their sustained success. They have to embrace both the tech and the community.
As the power sports world embraces these groundbreaking new technologies and responds to the ever-shifting demands of its consumers, what specific emerging trend or feature excites you most about the future of riding? And how do you personally envision it enhancing your own experience with these incredible vehicles? What kind of integrated, seamless experience would truly impress you and maybe redefine your perception of power sports ownership in the years ahead? Outro. Wow. We've covered a truly remarkable amount of ground in this deep dive, haven't we? From those economic tremors shaking the very foundation of the power sports industry, to the surprising and significant rise of Chinese manufacturers, that intricate and often contentious dance between online sales and traditional dealerships, and the transformative, undeniable power of technology and community in shaping it all. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, and if we try to connect all these diverse threads to the bigger picture, what really stands out isn't a simple narrative of outright disruption, one thing completely replacing another. It's much more a story of sophisticated and, I think, inevitable evolution. The market isn't choosing between the old and the new in some kind of binary fashion. Instead, it is clearly demanding a seamless integration of the absolute best elements from both worlds. And this is powerfully pushing companies towards comprehensive omnichannel strategies, relentlessly enhanced customer experiences, and incredibly flexible business models that can adapt quickly to rapid change.
Right. And for you, our curious listener, this means a marketplace that is simultaneously more complex in its underlying mechanics, definitely, and yet potentially more tailored to your individual needs and preferences than ever before. There's more choice, more ways to buy. Whether you're looking for an affordable entry into the exhilarating world of motorcycling or maybe a truly premium riding experience, or perhaps just striving to understand the powerful forces shaping retail all around you, being well-informed truly empowers your choices and gives you a real edge in navigating it all.
And this entire discussion naturally raises an important overarching question, doesn't it? In a world where virtually every industry is grappling with intensifying global competition, profound digital transformation, and constantly shifting consumer expectations, how might the profound lessons and the adaptive strategies we've uncovered today from the powersports and automotive retail sectors apply directly to other parts of your life? Think about it from how you buy your groceries, to how you access healthcare services, or even how you engage with local businesses in your own community. Are similar forces at play?
Yeah, that's a great point. We sincerely encourage you to consider how this deep dive might influence your next major purchase decision, or perhaps simply how you view the dynamic and ever-present interplay of market forces all around you in everyday life. What does this sophisticated evolution truly mean for the balance of power between manufacturers, retailers, and most importantly, you, the empowered consumer? Where does the power lie now? Thank you so much for joining us on this enlightening deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and above all, stay profoundly curious.